there's a hurricane coming and the power's out. How are you going to get good information?
Well, yeah, that's what we got this here for. This is the new Midland weather radio, and it's got some really cool features we want to tell you about today.
Hey, Provident Preppers, I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Mike. I'm the Provident Prepper Jr., and I'm his son.
And I'm Robert. I'm also a Provident Prepper Jr., and I'm his son and his brother.
So we got a family affair going on right now. We want to tell you about the Midland weather radio and what you might use it for, because there's some really cool things that you could use it for. Let's talk about what not to use it for first of all. Let's just be totally honest. This is not a radio that you want to use if you want to go see if there's a tornado coming, because you don't want to have to say, oh, we better go outside and crank this thing up and see if there's a tornado coming, because you might get smacked into chops with the tornado. This is for other stuff, and let's talk about that right now. Bro, what's it for?
Well, this weather radio is really important if the power goes out, if you don't have electricity, if you don't have any other way to know what's coming your way, this is the radio you want to have. It's got alternative power sources like a solar panel on top and a crank on the side if you want to power it with your muscles.
And also it has a rechargeable battery inside that you could charge your cell phone with, and you can also charge that battery from your wall so that you're prepared for such an event. But this weather radio would be really useful in my opinion, a hurricane, or if you're out in the backcountry, maybe hiking slot canyons, and you need to know if there's a risk of rain. Those are the two situations where I really see some good use for this. If you live in hurricane country, or if you're out in the middle of nowhere and you want to know if you should be worried about flash floods.
Now, let's also talk about the fact that it has AM and FM. So it's not just a weather radio. This has your basic AM and FM that you're going to use probably most of the time, but it has the alert feature on here. So if there is something coming, it's going to let you know.
But let's be honest, I'm not going to take this to listen to music from a crappy reception FM radio station. This is for knowing what's coming. So let me tell you where I think this fits for you. If you live in a place where there's hurricanes and the power might go out for extended times, this is awesome. I turn this on and I can get all the weather radio stations, and it tells me exactly what's coming. So if you don't have any other way to listen to the weather, this is awesome. Okay, so that's where I personally think that this is going to be most useful. What do you guys think?
I think one other scenario that this could come in useful in is if there's ever a grid down situation. We live in the mountains, and there could be snowstorms and blizzards coming, and we would have no idea if the grid goes down and if we have no way to communicate. But with something like this, we could know there's a snowstorm coming in tomorrow. We better put the coats on the chickens because they might get a little chilly.
That's right. Don't want them eggs to freeze.
One of the things I really like about the Midland ER40 weather radio is the digital tuning. I know some folks, old timers really like the dial and tuning it in that way, but I love the digital tuning where you go right to where you want and you get what you need. So that's one of my highlights.
And when I use this, there's like 6 or 7 different weather radio stations. It's the frequencies that you use. And all you got to do, you just scroll through those channels until you find the one that has the best reception, and boom, you're done. You don't have to fuss with the dial. It's terrible. Those dials are terrible, let's face it. The digital tuning is really nice.
I love that my dad loves to push buttons, except just on the radio. He's a really good dad for us. One of the threats that I think is really real in our environment today that we live in is the heightened threats of EMPs, or electromagnetic pulses. A radio like this is really important to have in an emergency like that because most electronics, or many electronics and radio stations and other things, go down in the event of an EMP. But if you have a radio like this, and if you've protected it properly in a Faraday cage, which we'll put a link in the description below to how to build a Faraday cage, then you can pull this out after an event of an EMP, and you would be able to monitor radio and potentially other communication that's coming over just a little radio like this.
And that's coming from hardened radio stations. There are hardened radio stations that you will be able to pick up.
And that means like radio stations that will not be affected by an EMP, they'll still be able to operate. So if you keep this protected, then you'll be able to listen to those protected stations.
Another feature that I like about this radio is it does come with a light, a good flashlight that you could use. It's got a low setting, a high setting, and it's also got an SOS setting. Not something you'd probably use a lot, but if you needed it, that would be a good thing to have. So Great topics.
I love the SOS, especially for those of you who go into the mountains. If you ever needed to signal for help, that could be really useful. Something else about this that's really cool. Right now we've got this plugged into a power bank that's charging this unit, but there's also a USB outlet here that you could use to charge your phone or charge any other devices that you want to charge. And then it's even got a little headphone jack in here if you wanted to put your headphones on and listen to this. So there are some options besides just using this as a weather radio or light. You could use it as a battery bank if you needed to.
And the last thing we want to talk about is this radio is not out yet. It is released September 1st, 2022. Now, if you're thinking about what to get your grown-up kids for Christmas that might contribute to them being prepared and safe, this might be a really cool Christmas present. And it's not very big, so you could put it in a stocking or something. But just something to think about as the holiday season nears.
So, in a crisis situation, how are you going to get critical information? Comment below. And thanks for being part of the solution.